discussion on digital marketing. We have 7 eminent panelists. Allow me to introduce them to you. Speakers, as I introduce you, please make your way up to the panel. Our first panelist, Mr. Vijay Jain, CEO Aura. Vijay is founder director of Aura, India's premier jewelry brand, which is with a diversified retail chain of 35 boutiques across 25 cities. He took over a family-run business and turned it into a professional organization which now employs over 450 people. The next we have Mr. Asif Merchant, Managing Director, Catwalk Worldwide. Asif is with Catwalk Worldwide since inception. With 30 years of experience in Indian footwear industry, he governs designing, development and implementing of all strategic plans for the organization. The next panelist, Mr. Kushal Sangvi, Business Head, Reliance Entertainment and Digital. Kushal is every bit the digital evangelist. A penchant for advertising, media and communications has driven him to this industry where he has strived for the last 19 years. Currently, he is looking after the digital marketing for Reliance ADA Group and is in the process of creating a digital marketing firm. The next panelist, Mr. Prem Mohan, CTO of AS Technosoft. Prem has over 20 years of experience in industry working with companies such as Birlasoft, R Systems, IBM, GSA and Capgemini. He has worked in different domains such as FMCG, banking, healthcare, retail and has been associated with AS Technosoft since 2012. Our next panelist, Mr. Sriman Kota, Executive, Customer Engagement Solutions, Asia Pacific. Sriman works with the IBM Smarter Commerce team and is responsible for driving the business in the Asia Pacific region. He has over 16 years of industry experience and has worked globally in various leadership roles. He is a thorough leader in omni-channel commerce, demand-driven supply chain, customer-centric initiatives and customer analytics. Our next panelist, Hitesh Malhotra, the CMO of Nykaa. He heads the marketing for Nykaa, which is the India's premium portal for beauty and wellness category. He was in the US and has done his MBA from California and has worked with Device. And please join me in welcoming the panelists to the stage. I shall now hand over the session to our moderator, Mr. Ashish Jalani.
So, welcome all the panelists. I think the introduction's already been done. So why don't we begin? I think Tim made some very good points this morning. And we'll probably start with one that I kind of found most interesting from his conversation. That was about harnessing the power of both offline and online, right? Something that is a buzzword these days, omni-channel retailing. We all hear it. And so let's start with our panelists to discuss, how do you manage the experience, provide the experience as well as manage the experience across these two very different platforms, if you want to call it. So I don't know which way we want to start. Start with you.
Sure. So we get a lot of intelligence from the things that happen at our store and how we can implement that online. So we have a store, a Nykaa store, which is for beauty products at T3, Delhi Airport. And when we get customers there, we exactly know, what are the kind of products they look for and how's their, the way they look at shelves and how they pick products from there and how they migrate or rather how they shift from one product to another at that moment of truth, which is the point where customers trying to buy something, right? So there's a lot of. The problem is that there's a lot of tools available right now in the market to gauge intelligence, but you don't know where you're gonna hedge your bets because, like, one way you have a hyper-local where you can show advertisements to customers who are around your store, or maybe you have stuff like beacons where if you do something on TV, suddenly the ad will pop up on the mobile phone. The problem is, we kind of get down to basics and understand the psychology more because we are very niche, right? We are 97% of our customers are women. And obviously, and I think the human mind is very complex, especially when it comes to women. So it's, in this we get down to basics and understand that, okay, if somebody say looking at a skincare product and what's there in her mind and what exactly she wants to buy. So when you go to the tools or any analytics tool, it'll tell you that, okay, since somebody is buying the skincare product, you should start sending emails or other communication to the same buyer to buy more skincare, right? Which essentially doesn't come true, because then you have to look at the rate of replenishment and how many times is she's going to purchase the same product again. And if she's already purchased this product, what is the cross pitching that you can do? What are the other categories that you can go ahead with? So I think our offline presence helps us a lot in terms of gauging the behavior for beauty products purchase.
Hi. From my point of view, actually, omni-channel is perhaps the most abused word I've ever heard as a retailer. We've got 35 stores, jewelry stores across the country. And everybody believes if you just add that one additional channel, you're home and dry, and it's a great way of distribution, we learn, there's enough time. If you look at it, the way we look at this space itself is fundamentally very different. I think conversation, like Tim rightly mentioned, has moved from one to many, which was a radio or TV, to many. Because on the digital platform, you're actually simultaneously a publisher, broadcaster, and all of that. So and we are in a category where word of mouth is very, very critical. So how do you engage customers to enable word of mouth? That's one part of it. Second part is, if I look as a retailer and a traditional retailer, we've got huge strength as a brand proposition on the offline world. Can I leverage myself on the online world and take it further on? Is the second really challenge for us, is how do I do that? Because typically if you look at the online world, you're limited by space. It'll be a storeroom, a store which could be 3,000, 5,000, 50,000, and there's a certain amount of SKUs which you can put in the store. On the online world, theoretically, I have unlimited amount of space. The other thing is, when you get into micro segmenting, and then jewelry, it becomes very, very important, is that every region has very specific tastes. So one kind of design or one kind of diamond in one market may not be liked by another person. I cannot physically keep that kind of stocking at all my showrooms. But obviously in every city, there is a woman who wants a specific kind of product. So can I use the online medium to go offline? And the third point, and I know there's a lot of stuff which we need to discuss, is if you look at the way purchase is happening online today, or offline, I think Tim mentioned there's a 50% ability to influence. And I think there's a very interesting report by BCG which talks about in each category what percentage of people have access to the internet. So I think in the travel agency, in the travel 66%, in our categories as low as 44%, but 27% of that 44% use internet as a point of influence. So there's a point of influence, there's actually fulfillment, which in our category is as low as 2%, and there's a post-purchase. So can I use this entire issue of influence meaningfully on the net? I think, so our overall strategy on online and offline is how do I use my strengths both online and offline to deliver to the consumer.
Hi guys. Catwalk believes that we believe in joining the three dots. What, where and why. We know that omnipresence is there to stay. We know that online and offline both need to coexist. We are already available in close to 131 cities. We are selling one pair of shoes every 3 minutes online. We were the first people who thought that we were the quickest to move, and we were very proactive to reach what, where and why. So we joined these dots. We worked towards it, and in this fast pace of consumers who are switching from online to offline and offline to online. So the aspiration, what was needed to build in and around the brand, it was successfully done by the offline channel, and that only helped us to build our business to 15% of our revenue comes from online today. We would be the largest selling brand in this country for online and ladies footwear, and we intend to grow this 15% to maybe around, we already see a scope of making this 15 into 20. And we are not seeing, initially there was a problem with the offline business, but now I think people have also started to relate that this is both there to stay, and if it is marketed correctly, as Tim said, it's all about marketing. Because Apple never said that my phone is cheap. He always said that why you need to buy an Apple. We saw that Microsoft failed to sell a flat television. So it's all about why, and in our organization we have worked very hard onto that why people need to buy us, and what and where is today available. So there's plenty in this country, we have correctly said, but Tim, we'll just scratch the surface. And we're just getting excited, but there's a lot more to come, guys.
Good morning, everybody. I perhaps don't sell something as interesting as diamonds or shoes or beauty products. We're commodities. We're a business which sort of almost sells things which you need every single day, which is from about 200,000 working people in Reliance, from companies as diverse as telecom to infrastructure, power, retail, financial services, now getting into defense, getting into coal and many others. So for us, I think we don't really sort of, try and keep talking about online, offline. The fact is, I think this is something which as marketers we have in our minds. The fact is, communication is now pretty much seamless. I think gone are the days when we sort of keep talking about the fact that we're doing this on television, we're going to be doing this on print, we're going to be doing this on that. So I heard a story in terms of sort of, I think, stores growing up, 15% sales in online. But I think for us, what we're doing is we realize that for our different businesses, we've got to figure out in terms of sort of where our customers are coming. So in the good old days, 15 years back, we almost had a telecom store of Reliance Web World. If you, sure all of you guys went and saw it sometime or the other. We had them at almost every 1.5 kilometer. Now perhaps we've scaled that down to almost 1/100th that number in the country. We're making it much more easier for someone to just change his plan on his telephone bill. If he's got issues, complaints, he can just Facebook that to us, tweet that into us, and he gets a direct message coming into that platform of his. And we almost know people through their social platforms, which means that we work hand in glove with companies like Facebook, Twitter, Google, etc. Sometimes in terms of knowing who these customers are. And that's, I think, our challenge which we will always have as marketers, because the fact is, companies like Facebook or Twitter or Google or whatever will not necessarily always give you the entire access to information. So as a challenge, we'll always be grappling with the fact of sort of trusting. So the entire principle of advertising, what works, 50% doesn't work. The same would apply in digital as well. We've got to go that leap of faith to sort of, understand what Facebook gives you in terms of algo or Twitter or whatever, and then just work along with that. But the fact is, as businesses are going to keep growing, I think we're shifting completely our businesses to sort of online, whether it is in the financial services. Today, for example, I don't know how many got insurance policy online today, for example. It's absolutely seamless. Within about 2.5-3 minutes, the process gets done. You don't need to sort of necessarily pick up a phone call to your local earlier sort of agent who would come, charge a fee, etc. So the point is sort of, the entire sort of, curve or the entire sort of gradient in terms of sort of the level of the layers is now sort of getting cut. So that's the point that we're making in terms of, yes, if businesses are changing to sort of, becoming more consumer facing, and I think sort of therefore the consumer facing, but from a brand perspective, yes, because we're so large a company, we still just sort of be in the space of people's minds, we'll spend that big amount of money. So for the same telecom brand, to sort of occupy space, we'll still sponsor ICC as a tournament and be there. But will we sort of keep doing that for years to come? Don't know.
So we've been a services company, primarily focused on the e-commerce channel, really. But what we've seen of late is a lot of these e-commerce channels have started opening offline stores, which has been very different, where offline stores have opened an online channel. But of late, what we've seen quite a good trend is a lot of online e-commerce have started opening offline stores across locations. So that's becoming a key trend. But one of the key challenges a lot of these customers are facing is, how do I service all my clients using a single platform where my data is scattered across different social media, my web analytics, my transactional system. So they're looking at a consolidated system. That seems to be the key thing, which will drive whether to go online, offline, and what we've been able to understand that customers' intent of buying is 30 seconds. If the customer likes it, within those 30 seconds, the deal is going to be done. If not, he's going to be walking all the way.
So from my perspective, it's interesting to hear the different points of view. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in omni-channel from about 1998. So interestingly enough, I was part of a software company which was a spin-off of Infosys, which was in the US. At that point in time, we were one of the first to get engaged with Best Buy actually, to drive their omni-channel story. And so I've been involved with Best Buy, companies like Nordstrom's and a few others. Over the last 3-4 years, I've been fortunate enough to have a little more perspective on the Asia-Pac market. And clearly, what I find is very exciting, in the sense that a decade of learning has essentially been used to leapfrog in this market. Yeah. When I say that, I still don't mean it's like for like. Yeah? It just can't be, because the kind of nuances and the variations of an Indian market versus a China market are very specific. And I think in terms of true omni-channel, I personally feel that the equation is still trying to be found in India. Yeah? And it could vary from categories. And that's why when I hear each of you speaking, it's very interesting, from a beauty product to a jewelry versus apparel. Yeah? There are different kind of levels of maturity that have happened. I think when you see something like a shoe, interestingly, there's a lot of maturity that has taken place essentially on the online space. Yeah? Companies like Zappos and others have done incredibly to kind of drive that. But at the same time, when you see the jewelry side, again, it's probably a little more in terms of an exploration. Probably there's been a lot done in the US and other markets, like Blue Nile and others. I'm sure we're kind of benchmark against. But in this context in India, it's again interesting, because it's such a personal thing, and how you engage to make it happen omni is very interesting. Yeah? So I think without doubt, in terms of a maturity process, I would still say it's very much in the initial phases of understanding, exploring, and creating our own equation locally for each of the categories. Yeah? But there is uniquenesses around it. Yeah? Because again, the market that we live in has its kind of challenges in terms of buying online and picking up offline. Most people in India don't want to do that. You know? Like my whole point of online is I don't want to go into the traffic again unless it's something just back door, beside me, yeah, next to me. And so why don't you just ship it? And that's why you see interesting kind of dynamics where some of the furniture companies are saying, I'll send you 3 sofas, I'll put it in your house and you can figure out and pick which one and I'll come back. It's just completely changing customer experience. Yeah? And so I find that very fascinating and how it's being done. So I think there is still a lot of equations to be developed here, but nevertheless, when you look at it from a broader perspective, the need in terms of islands of information is still there. Who's my customer online versus who's my customer offline is still a big question everywhere. It's irrespective of the mature markets or the emerging markets. That equation is still trying to be solved. So understanding the journey of the customer is still a big question mark. And as new channels come, like Tim was saying, we just signed up with Facebook, with Twitter. That's giving us more insight now. It's essentially going to bring more data in one place to make it available to all the different categories through which you can better focus on the customer. Yeah, so that islands of information is there. That kind of friction between channels in terms of online versus offline, in terms of, hey, is this causing cannibalization? Is it not? How do I drive incentives towards each of my sales force? All these questions still last. There are kind of resolutions and solutions, but I don't think there's one answer to that. Yeah. So these are just some of my thoughts on that. Hopefully makes sense. It'll be interesting to hear what others think.
So, keeping up with the theme for online and offline, something that Tim mentioned, by data-driven decision making, and I think some of the panelists also alluded to that. So, my question again goes back to the panelists. When you look at online, obviously there are a lot of tools, a lot of data being collected. A lot of decision making can be made based on that. But now when you combine the two strategies of offline and online, how do you actually go after that offline customer for the same kind of decision making?
While there is a lot of data available, right, you have to get to the sweet spot, and there are a lot of, again, statistical tools to do that. For example, if say a lady comes to my website and she's looking for, say, a product from, say, brand X or Maybelline or something, and which is the product she is looking for and which is the one she ends up buying, or probably she doesn't buy, she exits my website and looks for a cheaper price on Google and gets onto a competitor website. That is the data which I get online. Maybe the offline data or the kind of intelligence will gather from store is that, okay, fine, today 250 people walked in and they saw this ad on television and they are more curious about the product. However, they check the product for like 2 minutes but they did not purchase it at the end. Right? Now you've got two sets of data with you. One is the consumer behavior at the point of sales, and the other is the pretty much accurate tracking that you do on the website, where the person is visiting and where are the drop-off points and what is the purchase, what is the cart like. Now there are two set of data points, and how do you kind of combine them together is one of the challenges that we are trying to overcome right now. We do a fair bit of regression to find out, that what are the commonalities, what is, how the behavior is very consistent at point of sales, vis-a-vis our website. And we do see a lot of variations as well. I mean, purely because of the range, right? As we rightly discussed upon a few minutes back, that the plethora on a website is like unlimited while the store is limited, right? So then we have to kind of get into another study that the extent of variety or the availability, how does that play around with consumer behavior? For example, if you show one shade or one company of lipstick in a store and then you have two more as alternatives, it drives a different behavior vis-a-vis a website where you have one shade with one brand and 20 other brands, competing in price and quality, right? And this is where, I would say our challenge is for the brands where, probably we would say the amount of inventory at the store and on our website is similar. It's easier for us to regress values and kind of get closer to consumer behavior. But for a brand which is varied and for a product category which has got 20 options, that becomes a big challenge for us. And that is where probably we would want to get, one integrator or data point wherein, it can kind of study everything. And, as an e-retailer or rather an e-commerce website, our best effort is, to probably replicate the best in-store experience online, and that is what kind of drives purchase.
So for us, basically, I think there are two broad areas. One is, I think, the issue of analysis, and the other is a process of discovery. At the showroom level, we have data over the last few years, which we've segmented into, so I can tell you what is the expected profile of a person walking the store, when will be their next purchase, what are they likely to purchase. So I've got this entire data, which is also further segmented into the, so we own the consumer in the life cycle. So we don't own it at a particular time in their life, which is youth, or you're wearing a particular brand of shirt or t-shirt at a particular age, and as you move on to something else. So we are able to segment that data very clearly based on historical sales. For us, the net is actually the process of discovery, because every day I can discover a bit more. So if I was to take an hypothesis, say the woman is of age XYZ, based on my interaction, she likes A, B, C, D. Now when we put that data online and we start segmenting it, she may also like Maybelline, or she might like a Lancome. She may be a traveler. And when we start analyzing that data, I think what we get from a point of view of discovery is huge in terms of segmenting that consumer more specifically. Not only are we able to segment that consumer more specifically, but also be able to drive it through certain action points. The action points could be, I could drive her to the e-commerce website, I could drive her to a store, or I could drive her interest in terms of engaging with that consumer. So I think this ability of having the data online and offline is, I think, one is of analysis and one is a point of discovery. And I think also technology as an enabler and how the consumer is using it. So I think there's a huge difference, and the point for us is, can we make both of them converge?
For us, analysis is about paralysis. We are just unable to do, despite of having a good team in place, despite we are trying our level best. It's in this country, means this emerging, always I hear from people that it's an emerging country. I just shortlisted what we have understood from that word emerging. Before people could settle down for landline, people were having mobile phones. Before I could pay my EMI for my pager, I had a mobile phone on my SMSs. Before I can complete my EMI for the phone, and I got it that there need to be a smartphone. So it's, the Indian consumer is just moving at a fast track, and we are stunned. We are stunned by the growth we are seeing in tier 3. We are stunned, means we have close to 10% of point of sales in tier 3. And tier 3 has shown an amazing growth for the same stores. We are seeing a huge growth coming in tier 2 compared to tier 1. So there's a huge influx of brands all of a sudden. There's so much happening all of a sudden that a poor customer is just unable to absorb so much, and she's just shifting, she's going from another one thing to another thing. So what to analyze, it's really becoming a very big problem for us. It's so much of paralysis. We had a CRM team who used to say, buy one, I'll give you this much point. Buy that, I'll give you that much point. Now who's interested in those points? Online is telling you, I will give you at home all the points. Just buy from me. And there's so much happening. So now, actually to understand the end consumer has become a very big task. Fashion is being sold all across. Brands are being bought. Mahindra was bought by Flipkart because it was fashionable. So Indian consumer is moving at a very, very fast pace, and it's better that, means of course data will play a very strong part. But today, as of today morning, to analyze the right data has become a very big task for us. So we are working in a direction where we actually want to communicate to all the customers, but it's a very big process as of now.
I'm going to try and again talk about another very interesting sort of service we launched in the country, that's in Bombay, which is the Bombay Metro project that a lot of us waited for too long to start. As we talk about 40,000 people every single day just commute on the metro itself. We have complete detail of these individuals, and these individuals, perhaps we're trying to lure them by the fact of sort of not every month trying to go to the actual counter and renewing their pass for using the service. But the fact is, can they sort of just automate that again through their Google Plus, Hangout, or what have you, all those things. And these, we never realized that sort of as a brand, that you know what, there's so much that we love for our city. Very recently we did something with the government, ministry, as well as in fact for the first time using as a platform, and we realized the beauty of the fact of something that, you know what, we're perhaps growing to sort of, I think, get to a smartphone generation and all of that, and sort of today even with feature phones, I think almost 8 out of every 10 customers every single day took pictures out of the moving metro to try and perhaps just take selfies of themselves or of the Bombay city, to just throw it up on their social platforms and to essentially feel good about the fact that hey, this is a new service which has come. So the fact is, it's a feeling of pride, it's a feeling of ownership, and as a brand what we only get is just the feeling that hey, we're able to enable people's lives. So it's not about selling anything out here. It's just about creating, I think, just tolerance, good, I think, satisfaction, and we're sort of seeing that almost every nanosecond. So for example, I have an ORM team which is continually micromanaging just the social page of the Mumbai Metro, giving me exact analysis of what's really happening by the hour. And in time to come, it's going to happen more importantly for service as a function, because the fact is, as much as sort of I think it's important to have happy people, I'm not saying we've actually had even disgruntled customers. I don't know, a lot of you guys would have seen, for example, when we actually had the metro got launched, we actually had, I think, a viral video of, for example, we had a leakage in the metro. So for example, I know on bloody day 3, I had calls from the chairman's office saying, what are you guys doing on social? Because the fact is I had actually people sort of almost making little videos of people scrubbing themselves with shampoo, soap and Life Boy and Lux and whatever, all sort of made and manufactured put up saying that this is what Mumbai Metro is all about. So I had a nightmare for the first month trying to wash off all the soap first. Now that the soap is washed, people are sort of suddenly smiling, which means suddenly, and of course the customers in India, we're whiners. We're like kids or even babies. We get these moments of highs and lows. So suddenly, as the shampoo service now settled down, I wouldn't be surprised if the shampoo would go up again. So can I get, for example, a good Instagram post again after 1 month? I don't know. So I only hope that yes, the service continues. For example, for example, there is some flaw with something, I know for a fact that again, and these are challenges that we got to grapple with every single day.
So I'll quickly take a point from the data perspective, what's being really looked at. So I'll give you a very simple, very basics what's really happening today. A lot of the e-commerce companies are generally tending to send out mailers without even looking at what the customer is really looking to buy at. Whether the customer really came to my site in last 30 days, has he opened my email, has he looked at any kind of communication with us? And whether be online, offline, we see, if you look at it, average individual on a day gets about 10 to 15 emails which are not relevant to him. So if that's something that data will drive, how effective that communication has to become, the data is going to be the key driving point of that.
Because being last in the line, I'm going to take the opportunity to draw a little perspective, if you like. I guess the holy grail for a marketer is if you have all the information or data you have, and be able to kind of pull out insight from that and take action on it at the moment that matters. I guess that's going to be the ideal thing that we all want. But I think when I think about it, as I work through different customers, I'm sure Tim will have a view here, the kind of maturity varies. When I look at something like a telecom customer or a banking customer, the maturity in terms of driving marketing, I would say, is a far further along than others. Today we all are experiencing it. Whether it is prepaid or something, as soon as there's a charge made, some message is coming to you saying that, hey, here if you do 10 GB more, you're going to get X% off. That is real-time marketing. I'm able to automatically understand that I did some action, and based on that action, I am doing a promotion which is highly relevant and specific to me. I guess that is ideally what we want. But then the challenge for them now is how do I make that seamless across channels? If you came to my phone versus I came to my store versus you called me, can you still do that to me? Probably the answer is no, and they're trying to get there. And similarly, now if you go towards the banking sector, I guess they're getting some far along as well. Today I know some of the banks, and I know in the US it's a lot more, some of the banks are seeing in India as well getting there, where you put a card into the ATM and I withdraw some amount of money and I immediately say, oh, I withdraw some money in this location at this time of the day, and I know from my profile that you work around that area. That suddenly creates so much insight in terms of how I can kind of position to the customer. But I think, so behind that there is a tremendous amount that needs to happen to make that possible, I guess. And I think that maturity varies vastly in terms of that. To some of the things that Prem was saying, in terms of basic hygiene of driving just marketing and driving a wave kind of a campaign around it, that itself is a challenge to me. And it all comes down to data, I agree. It's all about really saying how can I get the clean data? How can I get the data which is constantly kept fresh, so that it is meaningful to drive it. So I think I see the challenges going across, but it doesn't mean you stop at that. People have to continuously drive different channels in different kind of activities, but find a way to come to some kind of a common platform which can bring all that data together, which you can then use. And obviously the data today is getting more and more complex. We have the whole aspect of big data, structured and unstructured. Some of the points drawn around social, it's just phenomenal. How do we really draw insight from that real time? It's just mind-boggling. And how do I pull that insight into an interaction that is elsewhere? So I think, data-driven definitely, and that's a philosophy that I think is driving, and a lot of them are, is going to be the way in which marketing will happen. going forward. And as things get more and more digital in nature, the spend is getting more there and there's more visibility around it. And so, but I think the steps to that, I don't think there's an obvious answer. For each one it's a little different, definitely is. And so I guess we have to understand for each of you what the journey is and what does it make sense. And there is no sequence here. It is a parallel activity and there's a lot of kind of, there's a little bit of war you're going into and figuring out what is working and not. And staying agile in terms of improvising on it. Yeah? And that's just my take on how we want to approach it. Yeah.
Great insights. Kind of moving away from data and going back to another thing that was on the presentation that Tim had, and it talked about customers wanting to co-create a brand experience, right? And starting to talk about a customer. Today's customers obviously have changed considerably, and we're saying tomorrow's customer, and I started by saying maybe we should think about today's customer because I think the customers have already started to change. And they expect a more integrated experience, right, from the marketers. They want their commerce, they want their content, and they want their community. All three C's kind of presented as a one integrated pitch, if you want to call it that. So again, going back to the panel to kind of get their views on how do you approach this, what are the challenges we see when we're trying to do this with the new age customer today.
So talking about consumers and communities, right now it's very fashionable to say that you get into the data listening tools which work on keywords like maybe Radiant 6 or Brandwatch and see what people are talking about and kind of devise your strategies around our communication around the things that people talk about. And I've done it for like years now in my life, and I've kind of figured out that the accuracy of all these listening tools is not maybe more than 40 or 50%, because most of the conversations around say a brand or product where people form communities are closed communities. They are not open communities which these tools can crawl over, and therefore I feel that there is a big change. There's a big kind of wave coming in, like especially with I recently read about Facebook's topic data, which is their summation of big data, wherein they will be able to tell me maybe in a few months that which is the most talked about brand in terms of bath and body, and what are people talking about it and what people like about it, or maybe which is a TV ad which has become viral and people really like these aspects about it, and maybe I can pick clues from there. So communities are there and conversations are there, and you have technologies which kind of get you closer to the open communities or open conversations, but over a period of time you realize that the only conversations that are open are complaints. That hey, dear Vodafone, your service sucks, or maybe Myntra, you have not delivered my package in time. What to do? Because the tendency of consumers is to talk openly about something which is bad, but something which is good, they will only talk in closed groups. Maybe in their own friend circle or the people they are connected maybe socially over say LinkedIn or any other closed community, right? And the problem is when you get to the listening tools, you kind of dig out more of CRM issues, which is not all of us are looking for, because if my consumers have a problem, they will anyway reach out to me maybe on Facebook or Twitter, or maybe they'll write a sticker to me, that you need to improve that, or maybe I can do the same for my competitors. I can go to their Facebook page and check what people are talking about. The question is how to get valuable insights from the conversations that are happening in closed communities. So I feel one of the breakthrough is how the community platforms such as Facebook or maybe Twitter over a period of time comes out with the analysis of this big data which the marketers are looking for. And I think maybe Facebook is moving first. I don't know, it could be maybe hand of IBM into it. You never know, it's something very new.
Yeah. Definitely, if I may add, part of the equation that we have with IBM and Facebook that was announced is basically using the Facebook's anonymized, custom audience approach to kind of use the data and leveraging IBM's analytics platform to provide more meaningful insight around that. And they've also kind of tied up with us as part of our research lab to kind of build a lot more insight around it. And there's a similar kind of equation with people as well that we're coming to. But yeah, I would say that is definitely more meaningful, I guess, rather than just drawing it from and the face value of the
Yeah, because listening tools are more of, again, who's shouting about which brand in terms of company.
Correct.
We know that,
Yes.
right? We want to know that what is working in people's mind
Yeah.
with respect to different brands.
So if you look at engaging tomorrow's customer today, it presupposes one of the two. One is that I am targeting a different segment of consumers, which is the youth, which is what a lot of conversation happens around. Or two is the way the consumer is engaging with my brand. So down the years, do I see a younger consumer? Do I see a consumer with more money to spend at a younger age? Or am I looking at the consumer herself changing the way she engages? And I think therein lies is at what stage of the consumer's life or in the life cycle is what is she worth to me today? And just to give an example on how technology is really changing that, is in the category of any purchase which I think Tim spoke about, a long duration purchase. So one is the entire issue of understanding and search which you do, but more importantly in a category like jewelry, it's not something you buy every day. So if you see an ad, and how many of you guys noticed a car ad today? Did any of you notice a car ad in the paper or anywhere else? Chances, okay. So then these are the two gentlemen who are looking to buy a car. Otherwise, you will not notice an ad even if it's a full page ad. So in a category like jewelry, can you use social media as a way of engaging the consumer when the final purchase comes? And I think that is what it is all about. How do I create the excitement? How do I keep the consumer engaged? And the other part is that is technology changing the supply pattern of how we are engaging the consumer? For example, today in your shoes in a Nike, would you like green stripes versus black stripes? And what we believe is mass customization is going to happen in a very, very meaningful way across all. So micro segmenting, and on your shirt, would you want a label which says with your initials, or would you want shoes which are different, belts which are different? Would you want your cars changed or the interiors to look in a particular way? And I think that's not something of the future. So I think in that sense, technology. So whether it happens through 3D printers, in our category through personalization of jewelry, I think that's the other point which is going to be a very, very key influencer. So technology is not only changing behavior, but it's also changing supply chain, which will have a long-lasting effect.
I want my coat with my name written on it.
Absolutely.
See, I'll just get back to our tomorrow's customers.
So you'll have become the Prime Minister of the country.
Then I'll sell it online. Okay, I'll just get back to our tomorrow customers. We'll get back to that why question. Why a customer will buy me and why she will not buy me. So we need to be innovative. We are trying to get as innovative as possible. We are trying to get as innovative in our approach to the end consumer. We are trying to analyze that who is actually buying from us. And that age factor is really a very sensitive factor for us, because we believe our customer is young at heart. So around the DNA of the customer is getting, in this country is getting very difficult. My mom uses Facebook in Gujarati. So means it's not only my daughter is using it, my mom is also using it. So it's all happening so much in this country. So arriving to the DNA of the exact customer, maybe it's slightly more dicier in this country. So we can't leave out any stone left unturned that this red color shoe will not sell in Guntur. It's not happening in this country like that. The country it's getting so diverse, it's getting so fast, it's getting so adaptable. Fashion is getting adaptable all 360 degree. So it is just the question that why a customer will buy me. Buying is going to be endless. It's just growing. We are adding 1 point of sale every third day. This is the third year in a row. 300 point of sales in 3 years, despite of online upsurge. So, and please don't forget that we did notice one of the years, initial years or 18 months when we had a same store degrowth, but all of a sudden this year we are seeing that it's jumping back, it's bouncing back. So engaging with the customer, you need to be slightly more innovative, and you just need to arrive to that answer of that why a customer will buy it to you. Then maybe addressing to that customer will become slightly more simpler.
So I think the topic for today was trying to sort of draw inferences in terms of, I think, what customers are going to be able to sort of, I think, buy in the future. And I think through this entire discussion, we're still, I think, gravitating towards just discussing actually today, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and what have you. We don't realize that sort of, in fact, I've just come back from a conference in Barcelona wherein the whole world is doing the Internet of Things. Suddenly we're talking about smart city, smart planet, a smart fridge, which means the customer in 3 years from now, but actually it's going to be a scary environment. Our kids are going to grow up sort of almost robotic. Sort of there's an app which sort of almost parents are putting in terms of a diaper pin to just figure out whether the child has peed, and the app then sort of just blinks saying time to change the nappy. Which means that I think as companies, products, marketers, we're almost sort of going to a level wherein we are not ever going to foretell 5 years from now what marketing will actually do for us. You will never know. For example, there is a car which is being made, which is a smart car, which means the car will speak to the refrigerator at home, and the refrigerator will say there's no milk in the fridge. So the car will by default stop on the way, pick up milk, and then give a message back to the fridge, hey, milk's not picked up, and you can make a milkshake. And the thing will talk to your juicer as well. That's future. And that's what the customer we should talk about right now. And not just about selling diamonds better or selling shoes better, because the fact is that's the world 10 years from now. I don't think anyone's really thought about in terms of sort of how, for example, Aura is going to be able to sort of sell, which means that you're going to put a message in your microwave oven which says that suddenly if God forbid if your wife got her hand warmed wrongly when she sort of opened or she sort of suddenly got a stroke when she sort of opened her defrost fridge, and she's going to get a message saying her husband's going to give a message saying, hi honey, it's okay, I'm going to give you a little drink in the evening. That's exactly future. Then to able to almost micro, and these are things which you know. For example, all of us today are examining these little things on our hands, which are telling us how many steps we've taken, how many drinks we've drunk, all those things. That's the future. Marketers are going to be able to almost dissect data every single day of customers, of every single pattern of their people's lives. You'll actually know to sort of sell a shoe saying, he's in this mood, so he doesn't want to wear shoes. So let him go off to the office barefoot. And when he's probably coming back from barefoot saying, maybe time now to wear your Nikes now. And Nike, in fact, Nike is not a shoemaker any longer. It's actual lifestyle brand making bands. Whoever thought Nike sells shoes now? It doesn't sell shoes. It sells technology. So that's future, and I think we need to sort of grapple with that and not still sort of just talk about Google Plus and how am I going to fix big data and some stuff, because the world is completely changing. For India, we're still living, we still keep saying we're emerging, we're growing, but we're still, I think if we sort of evolve and see what's happening in the US, we're still at least a good 7 years behind. And suddenly when you realize 10 years from now, the marketer or the CMO or the CTO or the CDMO, whatever, his job function will be completely dynamic.
I'll keep it very simple. I look at it, customer loyalty is going to drive everything. How quickly you can service your customer, how the customer is going to continue to buy a product versus buying somewhere else. Because today's loyalty, if you look at this, 30% sale on Flipkart, forget my stuff. That's how it looks. It doesn't look like. So that's going to be the key driving factor, the loyalty factor.
I'm just really fascinated with some of the viewpoints that have come out. From my perspective, I think the 3 C's you speak, end of the day, ties to the loyalty, it's a sense of belonging to the brand. That is critical, and that's what every brand is trying to do, is kind of create that sense of belonging, create a sense of ownership, kind of feeling that I'm part of it, and that's what it is. So I think some of the points which Vijay touched on was around the whole co-creation aspect of it, which I think is, I still believe that, I think there's really not much done there. We might say that there's a lot amount of technology happening, which is true, and I think it's in angles which are a little different. There's a little more massness to the IoT, I think. Again, to me, it's like a data gathering thing, which might have other ramifications in terms of the co-creation for sure, I think. But in terms of fundamental co-creation, in terms of, I can take every one of the brands you guys spoke about. I mean, fantastic if you could really say that the lady The guy who walks into your store the next time, I know the shade of the color and I can tell you exactly what needs to go with your clothes, for your dress in terms of cosmetics. So for you, basically saying, let me co-create the exact jewelry you need for you. And for you, it's like shoes. I mean, can I make the exact shoe you want, like the Nike shoe or whatever it is? Yeah, and I'm sure there's so many other examples. How can that be really done? And that's really the co-creation aspect where the community can drive that in terms of an outcome. I mean, we see so many examples today where co-creation happens without even any funding coming from the person who's actually driving. Even the funding is coming from a crowd-funded source, where everything is basically coming to an outcome where the value of that finally drives if the business makes sense or not. Yeah? So that kind of aspects, and that's where I think technology, in my view, has clearly fallen behind. It is not there. The ability to drive mass customization, even like 1/10 of the mass customization, does not exist, in my view. Yeah? So I think there's tremendous amount to be done. I mean, I don't think the jewelry space is really complex. I don't know. I don't understand the space. But the fact that having somebody to co-create something like that seems a little challenging.
No, but that's actually the largest opportunity, because if you ask, if you go back historically, bespoke or key jewelry, where you sat down with the jeweler
Exactly.
to have it made. Now imagine if you're sitting at your home and being able to do it and then come to the store and experience it.
Correct.
And then to be able to move around the components, which was unheard of. Being able to pick up which diamonds you want to put in.
Yes.
So I'm just saying is that it is so huge in its ability. So my view is that on the jewelry side, the acceptance is much slower, but the ramification perhaps will be the largest in this
When the
space.
trust is gained, the technology gets there, I think it will be massive.
Massive.
In terms of getting augmented reality, whatever it is, and I'm actually creating the jewelry with my designer through some digital
In
fashion.
fact, I love the word you said, co-create, because I was trying to figure out a word.
Yeah.
And then if you look at any, interiors of house which is done, it is about co-creation. And I think the consumer wants to be a part of that. So whether I was talking about the label or whatever, I think the word you use is something I think
It needs to be mine, yeah.
It's yours, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying it's your word, but
No,
I'm
I'm
going to use it because I think it is actually, in a way, sums up the way forward in terms of consumer, in terms of technology. I think it is perhaps you should have a session on this co-creation term. I think it's phenomenal.
Cool. So as we're coming towards the end, I think we have a few minutes left. So before I present another question, why don't we ask if people in the audience have some kind of question for the panel?
Any questions, any
As a
comments? any
consumer,
thoughts?
I would be really, really worried about data privacy. I mean, you're tracking me every moment. So
You're
I'm
giving
not
it to
very
us.
comfortable.
No, okay. Let's say, you're absolutely right, and I completely agree with you on that, because I, as a consumer, I am paranoid. But what I'm paranoid is about the misuse of that data. I am not paranoid about, let's say today I'm from Bombay, but let's say I flew in from Delhi. I used Jet or I used Indigo. I am staying at the Taj, okay? Now, the moment I land or I'm planning my trip, if the Oberoi was to make me an offer, saying, Mr. Jain, you're coming to town, here we'll upgrade you to a suite, or we'll give you a 30% off, would I love it or not? And I think Tim touched that briefly on his presentation, which most people missed out. That as a consumer, I would be happy to share the data. The problem today, I think, is the merchants, and I'm saying whether it's the card or all of us sitting, is we are the biggest obstacle for you to fulfill what should ideally be in service to you. Because I don't want to share with him, he doesn't want to share his data with him, and so on and so forth. So while I'm not taking away the need for privacy and the misuse, but I as a consumer would be very, very happy to share the data provided it was not misused or it did not fall in the wrong hand. So I think more than Facebook and anything, I think that can somebody create a loyalty card which is based on consumers and not based on the merchant, which is you decide what you want to opt for. So for me, the largest opportunity is actually a global loyalty card. And then I've been thinking about this for the last 4 years. Unfortunately, I haven't seen anything come across anywhere. And then if one thing can do it is actually
You're
technology.
sitting close to a guy who does a lot of startups, so it might be easy.
I think we need to chat this.
Just put your 10% stake now itself. So,
On the co-creation side, Cadetmate is already doing it. They're allowing you to do that to some extent.
They are, okay, so their model is a little different, and I think it's interesting as to the supply chain, how it's changing, is that their model is basically saying, I do not want to keep inventory. So the starting point is I don't want to keep inventory. Can you do a piece and we will try and do it for you? Which is one part, and then saying that how do I optimize my business? The other challenge with this entire thing is saying that I am the lowest cost in this space. You ask any woman or even any man, do you remember what price you paid, an exact price of that jewelry you paid, or the emotions around that? And I haven't come across a single person said I bought it at 28,820 rupees. So what I'm just saying is that, and that's one part. Two is that also, and then I see this happening right across the industry, especially in the south, saying diamonds at 40,000 a carat, 50,000, 70,000. There will always be a person who will sell it cheaper than you. So is your proposition, and at early stages that will always work. I think the same thing we've seen. But on the internet today, only 1/3 of the consumers in India go to the net for pricing. So 1/3 is variety and 1/3 is convenience. But all I'm just saying is that as the consumer proposition changes, a lot of this will change. That's one part. Two is I think the entire issue is so I'm taking a little one more minute on the diamond category. Is if you look at on the e-commerce, it's a very interesting proposition. Is because at the gifting stage, 0 to 25 or 0 to 30 stages, it's not a high involvement category. It must look good, and therefore I'll give it. Or on the high-end part, which is a solitaire, which is like a mobile phone, which is very standardized. You can understand it, where it's a pricing game. But in the mid segment, this entire issue of try, feel, touch is still very critical. Can technology change it? The answer is yes. But I think, and then therefore I believe that it will coexist for the next 5 years. I don't know beyond that, the offline and online channel.
This question is for the IBM people, Tim and you. See, what we have been talking today about marketing, engaging with the consumer, I want to ask, have you done a study on Apple? Apple is the most channel unfriendly company in the world. They sell their products in leaps and bounds. They never push you to buy a new phone which they release. At least in India, they don't push you. They don't profile the customers. Still, they don't carry inventory more than 8 days. They have the best supply chain in the world. So can you talk, I mean, it's defying to what all we have been talking today.
Let me touch on that one real quick, because this is a fascinating example. I don't know if you all remember, but when they introduced the iPod, you know, they were 90 days from bankruptcy. Do y'all remember that? Yeah. Okay. And when they introduced the iPod, which is really interesting, is they were late to the party. They did not invent the MP3 player.
Yeah.
They didn't invent it. They just figured out a way to present it in a way that you finally understood it. Do y'all remember what Steve Jobs said when he held it up? Do you remember the phrase? 1,000 songs in your pocket. He didn't talk about, there are actually 53 features associated with the iPod he rolled out. He didn't talk about memory, he didn't talk about any of the other stuff. What he did was he put it in context. Now to get to your question, now it's why is it that they've been able to do what they did? It's merchandising strategy. That's all it is they figured out how to get you to buy one of these when you've got one of those, right? If you look at what their cadence is, it's an amazing, it's brilliant when you look at it. Okay, so if you buy when they introduced the 5C, okay, you could get it when it came out at 128 gigs. 128 megs, what was it?
Yeah.
Gigs or megs?
Megs.
Gigs. 128. When they then introduced the 6, guess what went away? You couldn't get the 128 in a 5C anymore. You could only get it as a 16.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brilliant. They dropped the breadcrumbs, the old Hansel and Gretel story, to get you to step up. And you got to remember what I said when I was up here. Our job as marketers is to do one thing, is to create the platforms and the communication that gets a consumer to spend more money. And the way you're going to do that is by creating a merchandising strategy. It's going to be a good, better, best. And we can look at lots of examples of great brands, and you guys do it in this room, right? It's I start with my basic product, and then I'm going to add some element of technology that's going to get it to step up more and pay more. And then I get to the next level, and there is even more technology. We were playing some merchandising strategies over here just a minute ago, lots of different categories. But to get back to your question, what I've boiled down to, me personally, is it boils down to merchandising strategy. If you can craft, if you've got one product, you've got the opportunity for two, okay? And usually a great merchandising strategy has got a multi-level step. Now, the opportunity for multi-level step merchandising strategy is, guess what? It's not the same customer. Who's going to buy your price-driven brand versus who's going to buy your added technology step-up brand? They're different consumers, right? But again, it goes back to what our job is as marketers. I mean, it's to get you as a consumer to buy what you need, but also to get you to buy what you didn't think you needed, right? And that's what Apple has done a spectacular job at doing. But it's also been it gets me mad because I wish I could go back and buy a 5C at 128 meg, and not have to go out and buy a 6, right? It just ticks me off. But you know what? They're making the rules, and they get to do what they want to do, and they figured it out, right? And so they get you to go down that path, kicking and screaming, but you're going to do it anyway, right? And you know what they're going to do? Guess what the next phone that comes out is going to be called? The iPhone 7, right? That's coming next, and then the iPhone 8 is going to come out, and I'm not going to be able to get 128 gig of the 6 anymore. It's gone, right? They do that extremely well. So, anyway, long story, but it's merchandising strategy. That's what it comes down to. The basis of it all.
It defies all the logic that we have been talking. They give very little margin to their retailers. They are asked, they see to it the marketing is so good that they are able to turn around the same amount of capital 3 times, 4 times in a month.
But you want to belong to the brand. That's what they did was they created an experience of something you want to belong to. There's did anybody see the great comic that came out years ago about HTC versus Apple? And it's the guy that walks in, he says, I want the iPod, or I want the iPhone, and the salesman goes, oh, but the HTC, it's got twice as much memory, it's 3 times as fast, it's got a bigger screen. He goes, no, I want the iPhone. He goes, no, look, maybe I didn't, it's got this, and he keeps going back, he wants the iPhone, right? What they did was they created a brand that you want to belong to. That's, going back to some of the stuff we talked about earlier, is this whole thing about brand affinity. It's not being created the way that it used to be. It's now, there's a funny story. You know those brands I showed you in the bedding category? There's one of those brands that's turning bloggers away from writing about it. The category as a whole is lucky if they get an article a quarter. That brand is getting 2 a week and they're turning people away, okay? It's because you've got everybody that wants to belong to these brands, okay? And that's what Apple, that was the secret.
So I'm just going to add a little perspective. Again, this is my view, not an IBM view. I think when they started with the iPod, there was a fundamental thing which they did, which I think makes all the difference. Yeah? Of course, it's merchandising strategy, which is becoming more apparent now, but I think then what they did is they fundamentally disrupted a few industries, which they basically said is, I'm creating a community where the music, the availability of the music, the device to use the music, and the way you access the music is all happening in one place. Yeah? And that seamlessness is what they've done is over time just kept adding new devices to it. The recent one being the watch. But the point is, once you're part of that cult club, probably the largest growing cult club, you can't get out of it because you're saying, hey, I have my 4 other devices on it. I have my Apple TV, my iPod, and my iPad on it, and I probably have a few more for my kids or whatever it is. I can't leave all this out and come because it has my photos, it has my contacts, it has my everything that's happening in my life. How do you walk out of that? Yeah? And once you get into that, you're in it. And that's what they're doing. Essentially, I think that aspect of network effect they create around just your own dependence around it is what they initially created as a framework. That's my view. And that has only kind of built up, and it's very difficult to get out of it. You'll see that most of the people who are anti-Apple people tend to be people who are more tech-centric. They'll say, how dare you put me into a closed loop? I'm not going to be part of the board. I decide what I want to use, where I want to use it. But not everybody is tech, frankly. And then over time, I believe there is a creation of aura around it, which is kind of saying, hey, I want to belong to that club.
We talk about continuity and consistency, and I hate to use Apple all the time, but they're just a great example. They created a lot of continuity in terms of, this feels like it goes with that, and I hate it. I got to tell you, I hated Apple. I hated it. I went down that path kicking and screaming, but it got to the point where I went, you know what? It all looks like it belongs together. Anybody familiar with Nest thermostat? You have Nest thermostats here?
Yeah, no, not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Okay, that's coming. But
That's an IoT device.
another amazing example of somebody that took a product that, I got to tell you, it's the last thing in the world I think about, right? A thermostat for my house. And they reinvented it. But they also did a smoke detector along with it. And they did an amazing job. And it's something I don't even think about that made me run to the store to go get one. And oh, by the way, pay 5 times as much than I would pay at retail for a thermostat anyway, right? But that's the age we're going into. One thing I wanted to mention real quick, and it's a little bit off subject. One of the hardest things you guys are going to run into is that, there's the saying about, information creates knowledge, knowledge creates wisdom. Y'all are going to be the smartest people in the company, okay? You have more insight than anybody else inside your 4 walls, okay? And what's going to happen is that you're going to see things that nobody else sees. What's going to come along with that, it's going to be, you're going to start to try to move the battleship and you're going to hit bureaucracy, right? It's going to be they haven't seen that, they're not there. It's just, you're going to go through your own battles and you have to figure out how to turn that battleship because you're going to see something that other members of the team don't see. It's coming if it hasn't already happened, okay? And you're just going to need to figure out how it is that you present the why to that management team as you start to push the company direction that way. Because you're going to have more information at your fingertips in terms of where the company should go and what it should do and how it should market, who it should reach, than anybody else in the company, okay? That's what's happening. So I want to touch on that before we left, because that was an important point I just want to make sure I made.
Any more questions?
I think this is just one point, it's not a question. Basically, I think it's more about not just knowing your customer, but also owning and understanding the customer. So I think it goes a lot beyond just filling in that form to understand what the customer likes, doesn't like. But then I believe it's all a part of the process, and I think the digital age per se has pulled us into that component altogether.
Good point. All right, you know what? I will formally thank the panel, and I think we're going to be around after the panel ends for lunch. So I think we can continue the conversations over lunch. So that way, people that need to move out at least can do that, because I think we're right on time. So again, thank you, panelists. Thank you, Tim.